2015 was an awesome year for video games, especially considering the lackluster and just fairly disappointing 2014. 2015 really stepped it up. There are a bunch of huge game releases, and also a bunch of smaller, surprising releases that came out this year that no one was expecting, which was really awesome. From giant, massive open worlds to small indie experimental titles, there was just such great variety this year. There was so much awesome stuff that I wanted to make my own personal list of my favorite gaming experiences I had in 2015. So here it is, my top 10 games from 2015 list. Anyway, number 10, Her Story. Her Story is unlike any game I've ever played before. It's such a unique experience, and I feel like the word unique is kind of overused, especially nowadays, but it truly is one of the most unique games I've played in a long time. It's set up as a murder mystery. The gameplay of Her Story revolves around typing in keywords to a database and watching video clips of a series of police interviews. The end goal of the game is just to be able to piece together what exactly is going on in this crazy, ridiculous story. The game challenges the player to pay super close attention to what exactly is being said, the phrasing, the possible words or themes, and to make educated guesses as to what searches might give you better answers and provide more clarity in the overall story. It is truly an awesome experience to piece together a story in your head and then see, oh no wait, that's not exactly what's happening, and then to get another answer, and then you're like, oh maybe this is what's happening, oh no wait, that can't be it because I saw that last thing in that other video. It's just so fun to piece together stories in your head and then search for more and more answers as you go on through the game. Number 9, Super Mario Maker. Super Mario Maker is the game concept that I've wanted for a really long time now. It's just a really nice level editing suite. If you're going into Super Mario Maker expecting a good Mario game, I'd stay as far away from it as possible. There are not a lot of Nintendo created levels in the game, and I wouldn't say it's a big worthwhile experience as just a Mario game. But as a level editor, there is nothing better. There have been some games in the past that have definitely tried at this concept. Little Big Planet comes to mind. It was really big into the be a creative artist person and create your own artistic designs. But no other game I've played has made it so fun and easy to both create levels and also play user-created content as well. The level editing interface is really simple to use, the tools are great, and honestly, I've played a lot of really good user-created levels as well, way more than I was expecting. Launch was kind of bad for user-created content, but it's gotten a lot better. I've personally had as much fun creating my own levels as I've had playing other people's creations, which is really nice. I do wish there was a Mario Maker story mode, but you can't have everything, I guess. Number 8, Yoshi's Woolly World. Oh my gosh, guys, a good game in the Yoshi series finally came out. It's been so long. I've waited for so many years for finally a good sequel to a game in the Yoshi series. I'm a huge fan of the Yoshi's Island game on Super Nintendo, but every single sequel that's come out from that game has been so disappointing. I've just waited for so long, and finally, Yoshi's Woolly World comes out, and it's the Yoshi sequel I've always wanted. It is just the most adorable 2D platformer I've ever played. The art aesthetic is fantastic, and the whimsical soundtrack really complements that art aesthetic as well. The levels are really well designed and full of fun secrets to find. It was great to try to save every Yoshi in the game. It was so great to play a game that's like, hey guys, playing games can be fun and happy, you know? Wanna just play a game and have some happy fun time, guys? Guys, happy fun time. Number 7, Life is Strange. When I first heard about this game, I honestly, truly did not think that I was going to enjoy the game at all. It takes the narrative adventure game formula, which is a genre that's already overcrowded, especially this year and last year, and puts in a bunch of teenage characters in an artsy high school setting. It just didn't seem like anything I would be interested in at all. But as I kept playing the game, I just got more and more drawn to the characters. The dialogue was really quirky with some awkward teenagerisms and just a young, youthful sense of curiosity and honesty. The characters felt like people I could really be invested in, and the writing set the stage perfectly for what I can only describe as a silly and serious sci-fi apocalypse drama coming-of-age story or something. The time-bending elements add some interesting depth to the puzzle solving. The plot has a good number of twists and turns. The relationship between the two main characters is awesome. It's honestly just the best sci-fi apocalypse drama coming-of-age story I've ever played. Number 6, Until Dawn. If you're a fan of old school horror movies, you probably know the feeling of watching every single main character decide to split up and leave safety and just going, no, you fools, why would you ever do that? There is no reason ever at all that you would need to do that. If you just kept together, or even, I don't know, just stood in like an outward facing circle, there's no way the monster would ever be able to sneak up on you. Just don't split up. Stop it. Stop right now. Part of the reason Until Dawn was so successful is that it really played up to that idea. It's an interactive horror movie where you're guiding this cast of characters and trying your best to make sure they all survive. It has a really good balance of campiness, scares, and just really tense moments. I especially loved the moments where you had to keep the controller perfectly still while a monster was sneaking around trying to find you. And with a cast of charming, well-written, and well-acted characters, it all adds up to Until Dawn being one of my favorite horror experiences this year. Number 5. Splatoon. Splatoon is the most fun I've had with a competitive shooter in a long time, and that's kind of a weird thing to say since it's not at all actually marketed towards like the hardcore gaming audience that competitive shooters are usually marketed towards. It's very much a casual experience, but it is such a fun casual experience, and it's also a game that takes all the conventions of shooting games and kind of flips them around and completely twists your expectations. It's a shooting game where shooting the enemies is not the end goal. Instead, the goal of each match is to cover the ground in as much ink as possible, more than your opponent team. It's really a brilliant concept, one that really completely changes how you think about the space you're playing in. You have to have a keen awareness of not only what's going on around you, but also what's happening on the other side of the map. The concept is so interesting and it's executed very well, and even after hours of playing, I never got bored. Matches were always entertaining. The single player mode of the game isn't really much to talk about. It's fun, but it's short, but the online competitive content is so unique and fresh and fun that I just played it over and over and over again this year. Number 4. Undertale. So I had the kind of unfortunate experience of not playing Undertale right when it came out, and seeing the hype train just build up and build up and build up. People were saying some huge things about it, saying it was like the best video game that's ever been, and it breaks the fourth wall and shocks players like no gaming experience ever has, and there was just way too much hype for this game for it to ever live up to those expectations. But after playing through it, I was pleasantly surprised by a nice Earthbound-esque RPG with an interesting combat system and some very humorously written characters. Combat in the game can be tackled by either killing every monster you see or trying to talk, flirt, and wiggle your way out of each situation that you encounter. I absolutely love the monster designs in this game, and I love how each monster has a different way of approaching the situation, and that the rules of the combat system change so frequently you really never know what to expect when you're getting yourself into a battle. Like I said before, Undertale also does a lot of fourth wall breaking, both in the gameplay mechanics and also the narrative. When it breaks the fourth wall in the gameplay mechanics and does some sort of Psycho Mantis Metal Gear Solid 1 stuff, I think that's really cool. Without spoiling too much, it definitely did something that I didn't expect it was going to do, and it was a really interesting moment when I was playing the game. However, I feel like the fourth wall breaking in the narrative got a little bit too heavy-handed for my taste, and I know that some people might say that that's missing the point of what the game is trying to do, but for me personally, especially towards the end of the game, there was so much emphasis placed on the fourth wall breaking that it actually distracted quite a bit from the in-game universe, and the in-game universe is so good that I didn't want to be pulled out of it. Minor problems aside though, Undertale is still an awesome game with witty writing, a wonderful soundtrack, and a really unique battle system. Number 3. Metal Gear Solid: The Phantom Pain. So Metal Gear Solid 5 is one of the weirder games to put on this list. It was definitely one of my favorite games I played this year. I loved it so much, but in a lot of ways, it had a lot of lost potential. Like it had the potential to be one of the best games ever, but because of the whole situation with Hideo Kojima and Konami, like having this awful blood feud, and the game releasing probably before it was ready, it didn't live up to everything it could have been. But that doesn't stop it from being one of the best games I played this year. The gameplay is fantastic. It is my favorite stealth game I've played to date, even including all the other Metal Gear Solid games. The level design is great, the bases are super duper fun to sneak around in. There's a good variety of lethal and non-lethal weapons, and the game does a really good job of incentivizing not killing people through the gameplay, because every person that you take out non-lethally can be added to your base, and I really do like the base building mechanics of the game as well. The story of the game is okay, which admittedly is not something you ever want to have to say about a Metal Gear game. The plot adds a ton to the lore of the series, which is really awesome, but it isn't a great self-contained story. But there's so much content in the game, so much really engaging and fun content, that it's hard for me to complain about what the game doesn't bring, because it does bring so much to the table. Metal Gear Solid 5 is another worthwhile entry for the series. It is a huge, addicting game that I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours playing, and it is without a doubt one of the best games I've played all year. So the next two games I honestly just could not decide which to put in my first place spot. They're both amazing, so I put them both in first place. Number 1, Part 1, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt has been wildly praised, haha, get it, wildly. It's been wildly praised by pretty much everyone, so much so that I think it'd actually be more interesting to talk about the series as a whole rather than just ramble on about how Witcher 3 is amazing for a few minutes. I am a huge fan of The Witcher 1. I know that it's an old game, but I feel like it still holds up today. The characters are great and surprisingly well voice acted for the time. The story is a huge adventure where you run into so many different types of monsters, and the rhythm-based combat system is so unique and interesting. It's like playing Guitar Hero, but instead of hitting notes, you hit people with a sword. Anyway, then Witcher 2 came out, and I know some people say that Witcher 2 is a massive improvement on Witcher 1, but I honestly think that it was a huge step back. The game was pretty short, you spent way less time with characters than you did in the last game, and when you were with the characters, the voice acting seemed subdued and stiff. The combat system was replaced by action RPG combat that didn't feel right, and you couldn't use alchemy in combat, so basically alchemy was useless. The Witcher 2 was such a big disappointment for me, I was pretty worried that Witcher 3 would be disappointing as well. And then of course The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt came out, and I was completely wrong to be at all worried about this game. The series is back and better than ever, the game is massive and has a ton of meaningful content, the story is amazing, the characters are well voice acted, relatable, and complex, Geralt is still the coolest cool guy ever, the dialogue is well written even in the side missions, and of course the choices you make in the game matter, which is more than can be said about most RPGs that come out. The Witcher 3 is amazing, one of the best RPGs ever, just go play it, just go play it. Number 1, Part 2, Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest is a absolutely perfect game. It is a flawless work of art. It is a gaming masterpiece. I have nothing bad to say about this game. And I know some people might say, well, there's no such thing as a perfect anything. There's always room for improvement. And I say no. No, sir, ma'am. That's wrong. Go play Ori and the Blind Forest, and you will see how wrong you are. Anyway, Ori is a Metroid-style platformer set in just the most beautifully crafted world I've ever seen. The animations, the hand-drawn backgrounds, the creature designs, everything all comes together to create just the most beautiful game I've ever seen, ever. The music in the game is equally gorgeous, the orchestral score is just so wonderful, and it perfectly matches the visual aesthetic of the game. The gameplay is a really cool mix of Metroidvania-style world exploration and discovery, and some Super Meat Boy-esque dying and respawning. Ori can get pretty difficult sometimes, and the deaths will be fairly frequent, but the respawn loop makes it so failure isn't really frustrating, it's more of a learning experience. The tight controls and fantastic level design make it so you know every failure isn't a cheap death, but instead just a personal mistake, and that every challenge, no matter how difficult, can be overcome through perseverance. Ori and the Blind Forest also has these platforming challenge sections, which kind of substitute as the game's boss battles, and they are some of my favorite parts of this game. They are so fun. I could keep talking about this game for hours and hours, but I think I'll just leave it at that. Ori and the Blind Forest. It's beautiful, it's fun, it's just a great game. Go play it. So that's it for my top 10 games of 2015 list, and I know some people are going to be like, hey, Tony, where's the Bloodborne? What about Fallout 4? Why is my favorite game of the year on this list? The reality is there are just so many games that came out this year, I just couldn't play everything, and if a game isn't on my list that you might have expected, it's either because I didn't play it enough to decide whether I like it, Bloodborne, or I just didn't like it as much as some people. You know what? That's okay, because 2015 was an awesome year for video games, and chances are if you're a gamer, there are a bunch of things for you to enjoy this year. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.